Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Timothy Allard. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Numio. Just today, I'd like to talk about simplifying some of the pain points that we do have in the crypto space right now. And part of it is going way beyond wallets, just in general into the dApp space, et cetera. So just to start off, I have a technical background. I went to school in a time where the internet was just starting to animate a bit. Things on the page were no longer static, and things started to move. So going from where that is to where we are today is just mind-blowing because there's so much innovation going on in this space. Contributed to a lot of open source code, definitely involved with a lot of development programs and things like that, which is really, really exciting from a bounty perspective. There's a lot of opportunities to really learn and get your feet wet if you want to participate in the space. So just a quick couple bullet points on what Numio is. We're non-custodial. We're a layer 2 focused wallet. So that alone is introducing some things that we kind of need to solve to get a lot of users onboarded. We launched in 2020, just at the end of 2020. We did a version 2 in August. And we learned a lot from that version 1. We found out a lot of pain points, where people are getting stuck, what people were liking, and things like that. Right now, there's peer-to-peer sending. We just introduced trading with Paraswap, which is pretty cool. We're on layer 1 right now. We're just ready to release layer 2. And we have some advanced backup and recovery technology that we have implemented to make it easier for people to recover their accounts, because that's also a pain point in this space. And also, we've been really listening to our users and feedback on where they're getting stuck, where they're trying to just get done what they want to get done in this space. So first off, let's just talk about the state of where we're at. There's so much innovation happening right now. Just in this room, just ask yourself why you're here, right? Are you looking to learn something new? You could be designing, developing, creating, just trying to participate with other projects, right? There's new layers, there's new blockchains, there's new terminology that we're constantly requiring our audience to understand, and sometimes we take that for granted because we really just want to push the bar up, and that's awesome, right? But there's a lot of learning curve that we're making our users do. So trying to solve some of those pain points are really important as we kind of catch up that innovation to catch up the users. So hundreds, thousands users getting onboarded daily, monthly into this space, which is great. And it's becoming much more mainstream. So you're seeing crypto on billboards, you're seeing celebrities talking about them on Twitter, your parents, your children, your friends, family. So that's really great to see. Just very quickly, we have a little bit of a simplification of some traditional web application infrastructure versus Web 3. Again, it's simplified, but on the traditional side, you could be very familiar with a front end, talking to a database, having some file storage, and maybe some other services that could be connected to it. When you go into the Web 3 side of it, you're definitely introducing a few more pieces of technology that you might not necessarily be able to own the consistency over, or how much time something takes. So there are things that need to happen to either inform the user or to tell the user what's happening after they click that button. And a huge part of it comes down to the education side of it. It's literally a fundamental aspect to what we're trying to create, right? If we're creating all this stuff and people don't know how to use it, we need to figure out ways that we can creatively do that. And we're doing a good job, and we need to do more of it. This is both in the experience and outside of it. So again, there's a lot of new terminology that is coming about, and steps that the user needs to do. And again, they're also taking on more responsibility to try and figure out how to get their feet wet. At the same time, there's a lot of people here who understand crypto. They understand the blockchain. They understand the process. So at the same time, onboarding new users and not boring people who really understand that technology, and to give them a great experience as well. So I'm going to talk about some examples that are that are working, some pain points that is kind of in the space, and just some examples of what people are doing. So education, it can be fun, right? So here's an example of Coinbase Earn. It's an in-app experience. People take out their phone, people pull it up on the desktop, and they have an opportunity to get immersed into an educational experience. Another way that education can be is it can be helpful, right? You can have interactions inside the UI that is walking the user on how to use the amazing things that's being created. And these could be in modals, pop-ups, tooltips, in various ways to get people familiar and comfortable with all of this technology. So definitely there's some learning curve. Just as we all know, addresses are long. Just speaking to people so far, we were talking about an example of doing wire transfers. I don't know how many people have done those recently or have ever, but it's pretty high intensity moment when you're counting the characters to make sure that they are the right ones when you send that transaction. So there's the same thing that's applied in the crypto space, right? You have a long address, and nobody's expected to really make sure that every single address, number, and letter is accurate, and you should be, right? You need to make sure that that's a big responsibility, right? So there's things with IDs and ENSs and QR codes and making things easier to send from one person or thing to another. This is something that may sound silly, right? But here's an example of what making blockchain as easy as email, right? Email is really simple. It's really comfortable. People know how to use email. If you go back a while, right, you'd pull up Terminal, and you'd have to configure your ports and your mail servers and do all these things. Now today, when we think of email, we think of a big text box, your compose area, who you're sending it to, and a giant send button. And we're pretty confident that it's going to get from point A to point B unless we screwed up the email address. Now, the arrow in the middle is kind of misleading because there was a lot of learning lessons in time between getting from the first image to the second. So that's kind of what we can do here and learn from all of this stuff and speed up that process to get us to a point where things are as comfortable, as secure, and as natural. In addition to that, there's so much noise in the space. Just on the web, anything digital, and even just walking down the street, right? There's advertisements, there's noise, there's traffic, things like that. Potential users are literally onboarded with so many different distractions, and when you're trying to onboard that user, it's eliminating as many distractions as possible. Online users, literally 8 seconds of attention span. 28% of the text that's on the screen is even read sometimes. So in addition to just a short attention span, it's hard for people to focus because you could get your Twitter notifications, your news notifications, your dog could be barking, needs to go outside, whatever it may be, it could be something that prevents a user from getting into your experience. So again, trying to trim some of that fat, usually one opportunity, maybe two, to get your user into what you're creating. Every button, every input, drop down, select option is a potential risk to lose a user or gain them. So it's kind of strategizing and determining what is essentially maybe the minimum requirement to get someone onboarded into the experience. And it's really asking what is necessary? And if it's necessary, is it necessary right now? Right? There's opportunities to basically say, I need this piece of information for whatever it may be, to perform a transaction, to sign up a user, but is this something that I could ask later? It could be something that once they have a profile or an account created, they could do that at a random interval determined by the software. And then also pre-selecting things. There are ways that through the UI you can introduce things to give the user an extra less click or tap. So again, trimming the fat, really assessing your onboarding screens and flows and saying, okay, is this too much? Is this necessary? How can I cut this down? And basically getting to that upside down triangle. Here's a little example of sort of, not a case study, but it's something that we noticed from our users. When we were onboarding people into our app, we had an optional profile picture upload. It's optional, but again, that could maybe be that, 72% of the text that people don't read on the screen. So when users are creating their account, there was an option to take that photo, and that photo would bring people out of the experience and into another application. So right there, that is taking someone out of something that we're trying to get them to do. And when it came to taking that actual picture, it was like this moment of like adrenaline. I don't have a picture, I need a picture, let me take the best selfie, right? So it just opened up a lot of opportunity for fall off. So what we did to simplify that is, again, it's still optional, but providing quick tap options for someone to select a photo of Ethereum or a logo or something like that. Keeping the user in the experience allowed them to get to the next step much faster and more efficiently. Let's talk about permissions, right? Every application, at least in your phone, has permissions that could be granted by the user when that user takes out that phone. And a lot of them are pretty standard. They're asking for your location, for your contacts, access to your photo library, things like that. Again, it's asking, is this absolutely necessary? But also, how can I make this better for that user? Because when a user sees those, they could be scary. Like, why is this application asking me for something? They're not really friendly, right? And they're not brandable. So there are ways that this can also be improved to soften that message that pops up. So here's some examples of a few different permission screens that you can control the experience. You can basically say, all right, this is why we need to ask for your photo, your camera capability. So I'm just going to use an example of Peak Advisor. So I moved to Denver not too long ago, and there's beautiful mountains on the west side. And there was an application that allowed you to put your phone up and give you the names of the peaks. And I was expecting one of these dialogues to pop up, and I got a nice branded experience of, you know, mountains with their logo, with their color palette, and a button that basically said, this is why we're asking for this, because we need to do X, Y, or Z. And in the middle, this is permission scope. So while trying to find some examples of this, I came across a component or a module by permission scope that's essentially a framework for people to pump information or data points into this dialogue that helps. So you necessarily wouldn't need to create that first one by scratch. You could use a framework to help you out. And on that third one is what we're doing when it's part of our recovery process, when we need access to something, displaying that interstitial where you can control the experience from something like that to something like that. Also, keeping the user informed. So I'm sure a lot of people in this room have experienced when clicking a button to send a transaction, there's potentially a moment of panic after, questioning not what did I just do, but when is it going to be complete? Is there something that is happening right now? I'm not sure, maybe. So in addition to introducing new concepts, informing the user of what's happening is super important. Users shouldn't be asking questions of what's happening. And I know there are instances where it might be harder, that it's easier said than done, right? So the first one is an example of ZK Sync, just showing you when you're using their test faucet, you get a nice little modal. Another one is Palladium when you get a success transaction. And the third one is for Phoenix DAO, they have an events marketplace. And in this marketplace, you create an event, but it's on the blockchain. So there's that Web3 example before where there's some other components that are happening on this, under the hood. And some of these components, you can't control how long it takes time for, or some of those other things. So they're doing some creative things where it is literally telling you, all right, we're uploading your data, we are confirming the transaction, and we are publishing the event. And as you can see, the first two bullets are darker, and the third one is not, because it hasn't gotten there yet. That's really helpful from a user perspective to understand kind of what's under the hood, but not revealing too much to them where it's overwhelming and not necessary. I mean, then also the white screen of death. So in this space, a dApp might be the first touch point for crypto. Same with wallets, right? So making sure that a user can experience the application as much as possible before they need to connect a wallet. They might not have a wallet. They might not know what a wallet is. But making sure that they can at least understand where they landed. They could be doing a Google search or a DuckDuckGo, whatever it may be, and they could have just gotten to this page and be like, I have no idea what this is, because something's not connected. So there are ways to make it interactive or allow a user to get into it as best as they can without having that requirement of a connection. And there's definitely ways, I think there's some improvement on connecting with a wallet. Like a little icon that could potentially say, what is a wallet? How do I find it? What do I need it for? And then educating the user in the experience as well. So part of that education is sort of an angled approach, right? It can come in the app and it can come outside of the app. And you can do things with tooltips and ways to kind of educate the user. And then the last one here is something that made me really excited because just coming from a developer perspective, like UX can also be on the development side as a developer creating. Better UX isn't just needed for the consumer, but also for the developer. So this is a testnet faucet for ZK Sync 2.0. Normally in the testnet world, whenever I've tried to request a token, I'd have to find where it's located, make the request, I'd send a tweet, and I would get, or of my Ethereum address, and I would get some testnet tokens. This dropped me 4 tokens, DAI, Link, USDC, and WBTC. I made the request. It hashed my, my wallet address, so that wasn't public, so that was nice from a privacy standpoint. And it gave me a bunch of tokens to play around with. I didn't need to go to find each one individually. So essentially in closing, literally bad UX can make crypto seem much more complicated than it really needs to be or really is. Underlying educate externally and in the app, so whether this is from the content team, the marketing team, the design team, inside the app, outside of the app, it's a well-rounded experience. Make it fun and engaging. There's a lot of gamification opportunities, tool tipping, and just being creative and innovating there. And lastly, just keep on building and have fun doing it, because it's a really exciting time. And just being like this room today, there's a bunch of other rooms all over the globe that are doing things that we're doing right here, and making sure that we can tell people how to use these experiences is just going to make it better for everyone. That's all I have for today. Thank you.